Hey, Sean, this question I'll ask you as well. What has allowed this group to be as resilient as it has this season in your mind?
I think I speak all the time about the character of the guys that we have in our room and on our roster. Right, we're very intentional about Bean and Sean do an incredible job about being intentional about who we're bringing into this organization, um, and we have the greatest player in the world, playing quarterback, and so I think it's really easy to convince our guys that as long as there's time on the clock, we have a chance. And fortunately, we've been tested and we've been in those opportunities, and we've found ways to come out with victories, and I think that allows the confidence. But we got a great group of guys that love one another and play for one another, and like I said, as long as there's time on the clock, they believe we're going to win.
What was your perspective at the end of the game? Sean was just talking about the debriefing that you had about running time off the clock versus going for the touchdown there. What was your take in that conversation?
Yeah, look, I think there's so many different variables that come into play, right? You can think about, hey, let's take a knee, right? Let's take a knee. Well, do we know for sure that they're going to be letting you score, right? Now I got Josh Allen taking a knee on the 1 yard line while they're playing for a QB sneak, pushing back. Who knows how that could play out? Now he's getting tangled up with all that, and so there's a lot of variables that kind of go with it, right? And at the end of the day, it's hard to score touchdowns in the NFL, and I think the discussions are always warranted, and there's a lot of variables that you can go about it, but I think we ultimately ended on the right decision, and I know a lot of times you can say it's always results oriented, right? But I think it's hard to score touchdowns in this league, and when you get opportunity, look, we saw what happened last year on some of our QB sneaks in the cost us opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, right? And so let's not get cute. Let's score the touchdown, and we got all the faith in our special teams and defense to finish the game, and we were able to get that done.
Sean said that was kind of a new situation for him. Just how did you see him handle it? He said he kind of changed his mind about whether or not to go for it, and just, I don't know, what was it like seeing him in that moment?
Yeah, he's always as calm as can be, and one thing we preach here is the communication, and as long as we're all on the same page, and we have a lot of guys that we trust that have a voice, and he ultimately makes the final one, and that's part of the fun job about being an offensive coordinator is when you're not the head guy making the decisions, you got to be ready to go for whatever that is, and but that was one of those situations where it's an easy decision one way or the other, but I was ready to go, let's go score the touchdown and go for it, so it was good to go. It worked out.
Sorry, Joe.
No, you're good.
Because you have that finite amount of time, did you have a decision right away, like this is what we should do, or how does that go?
Yeah, I think there's look, I'm always resorting to seeing whatever Coach McDermott feels like is the best option, and we go for it. There's no second guessing, no questioning, and kind of rolling. And look, we usually have a lot of these discussions as we go. My big thought process was perfect situation is, you take a knee right there and you burn a lot of time, and then we're going to run a QB sneak, and they're going to have 20 seconds to go on the exact number, which is a big difference, right? But I was thinking about also the fact of high likelihood that they were going to try to let you score, but man, what does that knee look like? When you're taking a knee, and then just God forbid he gets tangled up and everything like that. And then, you just weigh the outcomes of, okay, now we got 3 opportunities to go try to do a QB sneak. But, let's just go win this game right now. And, the way our defense was playing in the game, I believe they were going to get the stop. And, it's part of what comes with making those decisions. And, I don't think you can always justify the quality of a decision by the result. I think as long as you took in the information and you decided what was best, given the whether it's the analytics or all the information that you had, and you stick with it, and whether it was right or whether it was wrong after you debrief on it, but it was something that we were all about 100%, and like I said, it wasn't the right decision just because it worked, but it was what we felt like was the right decision at the time.
The possibility of Josh potentially getting banged up if he were to take a knee, was him already being 2 visits to the injury tent, took some hits yesterday. Was that a part of it that you already just kind of dealing with?
Now, it's the funny thing is all of these conversations we're having happens in 30 seconds, right? It's part of the calm, cool, collected, but you're having a lot of conversation and the play clock's rolling, or they call a timeout and you're able to have those discussions, right? So sometimes you think there's a timeout is a lot of time. You got about enough time for the quarterback to walk to the sideline, and then he's walking back to the huddle, and you got to go. Yeah, no, I'm sure. Like all of you guys, I felt the same way seeing Josh go into the tent. It wasn't that wasn't the reason it was crossing my mind. It was just sometimes you outweigh the more bad that can happen on some of those situations, and shoot, we just ran a QB sneak for a lot of yards. The play before was the best run of the day, unfortunately, but so it was just like, hey, let's just go get this touchdown.
Is that the longest touch push you've seen?
It was the longest one that they allowed to keep going. I was pretty pumped for it, but the guys did a great job. And look, it's like I said, we wanted. I think it goes back to earlier in the season. Like, we want the ball in our hands with the game on the line, and our guys answered the bell yesterday. And we've had opportunities this year that we didn't get it done. And there was obviously opportunities we had last year to do the same. And so I was very proud of our guys that the game might not have gone the way we wanted the whole game, but like we talked about the resiliency, as long as there's time on the clock, we're going to be good to go. And they answered the bell, and look, they obviously went down and scored, and our guys didn't blink. And that was a lot of fun yesterday calling a game with the guys, the way the guys were playing.
I apologize. It looked like you were using receivers a little bit more in pass protection, not just run game blocking, either pass protecting. I mean, that would look like, is that, first of all, how that plan comes into place when you think about it? Is that a result of Ty maybe being out and those guys being prepared to do it? Can you just talk about that a little bit? Yeah,
I mean, I think you try to grow your offense throughout the season, right? Not just year to year and game to game. And how can you find different ways where, hey, you might have it's not always a tight end chipping, or it's not always a running back or receiver chipping, and getting alignments where it looks like you're chipping and you're not. There was, look, my call sheet, we were going in and out with some injuries yesterday. The call sheet kind of looked like a Picasso painting with all the changes but like I said, the guys didn't blink, and we were asking guys to do some things that we know that they can do, but maybe it was something that they haven't done, this year. And I was really proud of the way that the guys, whether they got reps of it in practice or not, were able to go in and execute, and just so that we're not predictable in terms of when we align, what's happening and those type of things. And we were playing an elite defensive line, and we couldn't let them impact the game.
How much can that, I'm sorry, Joe, really impact the defensive side, right? I mean, like, you always talk about tight ends and 13 personnel. I mean, obviously that's got to cross them up a little bit. If they haven't seen something like that as much either, the chipping of their wide receivers.
Yeah, I think we've obviously put it on tape, and it's you don't want to make a living where you're chipping regularly and whatnot. Usually more sacks happen when you're keeping either extra guys in protection, or you're getting three guys out in the routes and that fourth guy's taking a little longer or whatnot. But I think there's a time and a place, and as long as you're keeping your quarterback comfortable, especially early, I thought that was important. And it's so important for our guys to keep our quarterback clean. And I know he took some hits in the run game, but I thought from a pass protection standpoint, like, he was comfortable in there yesterday, and I thought he was elite in the pass game. And I think a lot of that was because he felt extremely comfortable in the pocket.
Much Denver tape you've had a chance to watch just yet, but what stands out to you about their defense?
Yeah, it's obviously still early, but I think just as you track them throughout the league, they come off the ball able to get after your quarterback. It was an extremely tough game last year. I know the results sometimes can sway it, but Ty has a huge play in a 4th and 2. But at that point, it's a close ball game, and they're playing extremely confident. They've won, I think, 14 one-score games, right? Like, that's a battle-tested football team, and there's a reason they're a number 1 seed, and it's going to take our best to be able to beat them.
You having a chance to see play them last year in the playoffs, do you notice any differences, from preparing for them last year to preparing for them this year?
I think it's still early to tell. I think Coach Joseph is one of Vance is one of the best in the leagues, and he's always going to give you a little something different. And we know that we're obviously a different team than we were last year, and so are they. And that game doesn't have a lot of impact on this game this year. But we're obviously going to have to play better. What we were able to do yesterday was able to get the win, but we're going to have to be a better version of ourselves this upcoming week so that we get the opportunity to go do it again next week.
We've seen Brandin Cooks' impact on game days. How has he made your offense better in meetings and practices?
Yeah, I think I speak about it a lot, but just his personality, his approach, his preparation. I mean, the how much he takes care of his body and the notes that he takes and what he's doing, off the field in drills. And I mean, he's a leader. Look, he's made big plays. Look, he's had a couple drops that he obviously wants back, but it doesn't stop us from wanting to continue to get him going. And he's added a level to our offense that at times this year we didn't have. We're grateful that we were able to get him on our football team.
Saw yesterday the impact Alec Anderson, just a limited role. You had him part of things a little bit more last season. Is it a challenge with how much you used the three tight ends in different packages to get him on the field with them, because that's such a big part of who you are this season? Would you like to get him on the field more?
Yeah, we obviously used the jumbo more than anybody last year, and we thought, and we know Alec can obviously thrive in that role. We thought going into the season, we figured that was going to be something that was going to increase across the league, but we thought that would be a value, an impact to us was being able to get a guy like Jackson Hawes and be able to do a lot of the same things that we did last year, but now having every pass that Jackson Hawes, I love Alec Anderson, but every pass Jackson Hawes, catches is one more than our jumbo caught last year. And, and so it's added a different layer to us. But yeah, you've seen when Alex gone in football games. He obviously started against Pittsburgh. He's played against the Jets. I mean, he's a very, very good football player and did such a great job. It's one of those guys that did a great job in his role and somehow ended up doing less. And it's not to his fault at all. But he prepares every week and he's ready to go in the jumbo role if need be. And you guys see how psycho he is on, well, you guys might not see it or hear it, but I hear it in my headset how psycho he is on game days. But so whether he's playing 60 snaps or whether he's playing 3, you get the best version of him, the same version of him. And, I wish I can get him out there 60 plays, I'll tell you that.
This was the craziest thing that you've heard in your headset that you could share over the course of the season?
I probably can't share anything, as you guys know him.
I know the numbers weren't where you want him in the run game. The fact that it was pretty much a one-score game the whole game either way, you never had to go away from it. You could still use the run game. Like how important, two-dimensional, right? How important is that you, even though you're not getting all the results you want, you still can hand the ball off because you don't have to just go one-dimensional.
Yeah, look, we knew we were going against a really good run defense, and there was going to be, some bloody runs early that we talked about that, sometimes go for 2, 3, and you're hoping as the game goes that those can eventually, turn to 8 and you can wear on them a little bit. We weren't to our standard in our detail and our execution yesterday. Some of the blocks, some of the checks, some of the way that we were running it wasn't to the standard, and that has to clean up so that we can be more two-dimensional. We were living in some too many off-schedule plays, especially in the run game, and it wasn't something, we've done such a good job this year that I didn't want to come away and saying, oh man, I abandoned the run too early, but there's also a fine line with it. And so a lot of things for us to clean up because we're at our best and we obviously can stay two-dimensional and rolling with it. And, Josh made some great plays with his feet and did a great job of, hey, there's some pressures, getting on some run plays, getting the ball out in space. And, Khalil and the guys doing a great job with it. But as long as we can stay two-dimensional, we're going to be at our best.
Joe, as you look at the game as a whole, how important was Khalil Shakir to everything, having some of those shorter yardage catches but keeping drives alive?
Yeah. Khalil was obviously frustrated he didn't get to play against the Jets, right? His last, he talks about that bubble that he dropped on the 3rd and 2, and, didn't like how he finished that. And I told him that was the least of my concerns, like having him ready to go for the postseason, how valuable he is to us and for us. Look, he had He had 12 targets yesterday, come on with 12 catches. Yeah, they might not be, we had Josh had the incredible throw and the one down the field that he had the great snag. But some of those are behind the line of scrimmage, and, he does such a good job with the ball in his hands. And, I know sometimes it looks like they're screens, but they're just kind of runs to us. And, you spit a run play out and you throw it out to Khalil and he gets 4 yards, 6 yards. That's a 6-yard run for us. And if anything, it makes the defense have to chase sideline to sideline. And so he's so valuable to us both in the run game and the pass game. And, he was critical for us yesterday.
What do you need to see out of Keon this week, especially with a depleted wide receiver room?
I don't need to see Keon do anything besides be Keon Coleman. I say that to him every week. Just continue to grow within the system, on and off the field. I was pleased with how he was able to, he made a big play yesterday, in the turkey hole. It had a great feel, and Josh trusted him in that situation. But I think sometimes it's just like anybody in the playoffs. I don't need anybody to be extraordinary. I don't need anybody to do anything outside of just be themselves and just do their 1/11th in the job, and everything will take care of itself.
Can you recall a time, I'm assuming this was the case because you said, running off the time and you got Jacksonville to burn a timeout there at the end, just to revisit that real quick. Can you think of another time when you wanted an official review to take a touchdown off the board?
No, I'm usually always wanting a touchdown. I would have wanted the touchdown then anyways. No, I'm just look. Obviously you put the ball at the 1 yard line. I'm hoping, I'm expecting us to score regardless. So it was probably more for the way that the score went down. No, I can't think of another time. And like I said, if we scored right there, we had all the hope right there. Our defense was going to get the stop anyways. So, I know there's not a perfect science. I always think from a head coach perspective, there's not a perfect science to a lot of these things. It's easy to be, the next day go through it, but that's part of the decision making that we got to do in such a quick way. But that's what we prepare for, and that's what we do. And what I thought was really cool is nobody's heart rate went up in those situations. It was, this is what we're going to do. We'll roll with it, and all is well. And we got a lot of trust in the rest of the guys on the football team to get the jobs done.
I know we asked you this last year around this time, but with the potential head coach interviews, I know it's out there that you have one at least. On a short week, it might be a different question. How do you compartmentalize all of that, trying to get ready for Denver?
Yeah, you don't really have to, right? I don't have to do anything until after this game, and so there won't be any focus on anything else besides the Denver Broncos and our guys, and doing everything we can to get an opportunity to go do it again next week. That's all I ever care about, and the rest of that stuff will take care of itself. Awesome. Thank you, guys.